My name is James Silver. I'm an author. I wrote a book called The Post-Pandemic Wine Market, A Practical Guide, and most recently, Chief Sales Officer at Wine Direct Fulfillment. Just prior to that, Managing Director for North America for the Bulgaroni Family Vineyards.
Excellent. I'm going to hit all three tracks while we just talked about there for over the next hour. Let's start with the authorship, because that's a very unique thing right off the bat that I'll be able to work with. So what was the precipice for that book, and kind of when was the decision made to become an author?
I've always wanted to write. I mean, I don't know if we're in it right now. I'll just get right into it.
Oh yeah, we're in it. Oh yeah, we're in.
No, I found myself between positions, and I'm a busy little beaver, I guess, and just wanted to keep busy. But honestly, having a book's been rattling around in my head for years and years and years, and I just never thought that I would be something that I could produce something anyone would really want to read. And then I realized actually it's probably true that I did have something to say. I've been doing various things in the wine business for 30 plus years, and decided like this is a great opportunity to just see what comes out. And I started writing, and I'm asked all the time, did you get AI to help you write it? And to be honest, yes and no. Yeah, it helped me with an outline. I told whatever prompt it wasn't even ChatGPT, I didn't have that. I said, here's what I want to write. Give me an outline. And it was helpful. It gave me like 14 chapters. It was entirely too much. So I edited from there and started writing on my own. So the words are mine. The structure was, I was helped out by AI to a certain extent. And what's interesting to me now is AI is part of my life now. It's part of my desktop all the time, but it wasn't then. And the distance of time, 1 year. I've gone from, not having it to having it every day in the space of a year. I know you live that. I think everyone's living it.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting the way you phrased your use of AI, because it's the same as myself. I use AI every day, all day. It's attached to my phone. It's attached, and it's not just attached as an app. Like I have it trained to constantly be reviewing the way that I communicate through text messages, through everything, because I want that muscle memory to be there so that it can be a representation and know what I want, but also it can also at the same time gather all the information from a wide aggregation standpoint. And then just like you just said, help me develop the framework successful. And I think the hardest thing, especially in a creative aspect, is we can all be creative as we want, whether it's writing or making music or building a business. But one thing creatively, when anybody goes into a creative mindset, you lose the logic and the analytical mindset. So I found that AI is able to give me that framework and keep the creativity grounded and structured, so I can focus all of my attention on the creativity and not worry about the framework.
Great. No, I agree. It really is. It sits there like a helper, and that's what I think it really should be. It's not supposed to replace you or anyone else necessarily. It's your helper. And for me, this is not a commercial, but for me, one of the most useful tools I have is Grammarly, because it's constantly fixing mistakes as I type them. Mm-hmm. And what a time saver! It makes me look 20 times smarter than I am. And that it's really, whether I'm writing a LinkedIn post or a Substack thing or anything on an email, it's sitting there fixing my mistakes. And it looks, people say, oh, I can tell it's AI because everything is perfect. Yeah.
I get that so much, where everybody will be like, I didn't respond to your email because it was too good. It must have been AI. I'm like, guys, I went to college for corporate communications and public relations. I literally would write press releases all day long. I've always written amazing emails. Now you're going to judge me?
No, I even put as the subtitle of one of my Substack pieces, I noted that I was a human user of the M dash. Yeah, I love the M dash. I've always used
thank you for finally saying that. That's what people say to me, and I'm going back and screenshotting now years ago to be like, guys, I've been dashing harder than you guys ever, but I was dashing before you guys were commas and semicolons.
Honestly, the M dash really is conversational. It helps because that's the way people speak. They go from they have a quarter second break between thoughts, That's exactly what that is. And it's I don't know. I always found it quite
No,
useful.
I'm this is a clip right now, and I'll have this in the back of it that conversation right now is a clip because my girlfriend and I have been talking about this like crazy, how people constantly are calling her and I out for it. We're like, just
Yeah,
because we're grammatically successful doesn't mean that we're AI with the dash.
yeah,
Everybody just wants to pretend it didn't exist before.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. I have you asked me what where does a book come from? I don't know because I'm not well read. I don't sit around reading books. I know plenty of people. My wife was sitting on the couch last night just reading a book, and I just don't do that. But what I read is everything else in the universe, and I think and I think that's attention span, right? But it's where I get my language from. It's where I get my grammar from. It's where I get the people. I had a commenter on Substack tell me I use too many big words. Just write normal, and, and which is fine. But that's I don't know. I kind of absorb these things, but not from literature. I don't think I've read my own book, but I think it's pretty good.
And to be honest with you, there's a lot of authors that I enjoy in the business world and the biographical world that aren't big readers. And I'm not advocating don't read. That's not what I'm trying
Yeah,
to say to anybody
yeah,
that's listening or watching. But at the same time, we all need to understand that we interpret and we extrapolate and we discern differently. And I'm the same way. Like I try very hard every year to set a goal to read a book a month. And
yeah,
I always do it for a couple months, and I get to like March, and then March for me in our season in the alcohol world, it gets busy,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden I lose that goal every year 3 months in, and not because I don't want to, and not because it's not my intention to. At the same time, there is there's a balance between the two of burying yourself into reading and versus opening the eyes and seeing what's presently going on. And I think that it sounds like you're also doing that, where it's like you're still gathering the education, you're just gathering it in a different medium.
Yeah,
Like
no, I
that's
think
what I
that's
mean is like books are important and reading's important, but also the foundation of just discernment and understanding and constant learning and evolution, I think is the most important part as opposed to the medium sometimes.
I think I really secretly want reading to be entertaining. It just has to be
Yeah.
entertaining. And the one of the things that I wanted about my book's an academic book.
Mhm.
It's for the trade. But I also wanted it to be entertaining. So I did write it in my voice. I did write it conversational. That I mean, I don't think there's any profanity or anything like that, but it is, colloquial. And there's you know, it's peppered all over with dozens of little stories, personal stories from my career through, I mean, that go back years and years. So sometimes I don't even remember how far back, but I wanted it to be entertaining. For example, I mean, I sat down one time and read the entire Game of Thrones, right? All the books, everything, all in a row, nonstop on my phone. And that's 5,000 or 10,000 pages or whatever it was. And I was so annoyed when I was done that I said, what's the biggest book I can find that would keep me entertained like that? And I read the unabridged Les Miserables, uh, you know, from start to finish. I haven't read a book since. I mean, it's, not like that. I just, I guess I binged, and reading.
Yeah, no, you definitely you hyper fixated and went into it, but it's one of those things where it's important. And I already can tell, like, I didn't know about the book prior. Like I said, I don't do a research intentionally, but I pulled it up on the screen just now while you were talking. And first
Mm.
off, I want to say, love the cover.
Oh,
And
that's
I want to say that is like crucial for me. Like, so perfect job.
well. You can give Brian Amelli, my publisher, credit for that. I wanted it to. I forget what book I was trying to copy, but he didn't like it at all. He goes, "How about this one?" And I said, "Oh, that's perfect. Let's just do
It,
that." And he
it
did it
is
by hand.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. Now, when somebody orders online, is it at an online shipping place or is that you packing and shipping those orders?
Oh no, no. If you buy it from Brian's publishing house, the Board and Bench, I'm sure they pack it up
Mhm.
themselves. I'm really not sure, but this is available on Amazon too.
Perfect.
Um,
And do you sell
and
it on a website as well or just on those two platforms?
no, just those two
Okay.
platforms. Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. My approach to writing a book was, I certainly didn't think I was going to make any money at it, and I haven't. I assure you. It was this was for me. I did it for me because I had so much stuff rattling around in my head that I wanted to organize and just say, "Hey, look, I've been out here selling wine, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of wine over 30 years, and I just want to tell you about it. And I think here's what we can, here's maybe this is helpful because and really, the book is interesting because I tell you all the bad stuff too. and tell you all the stuff that failed. And that, I think that's helpful, really, really helpful to tell you. Well, I've been told a number of times by different people that one of my little side snippets in gray boxes where I tell you the story is about a failure that I had 6 years ago or something like that. A store that was opened. It was too far off the corner, but I insisted. This was going to work. This is going to work. It didn't work, and I said why. And but I think that's helpful. That kind of stuff.
It is, and that's the theme of everything we do here. I have another show called The Leaders Arena, and we go through all the grit and resilience and the roller coasters. And not sure how much content you had gotten before, but I'm very open about. I started this business 17 years ago. I started in the alcohol space, specifically in beer.
Mhm.
I got to start this business in 2008, and then ride the craft beer wave from 2008 all the way up to 2020. I traveled around the country, working with breweries around the country, setting up distribution in the Mid-Atlantic region of Pennsylvania. With that, it became hard. It was at different times that it was hard to run this business. And I'm a solo entrepreneur and solopreneur, so I don't have a support team or anything like that. So there was times where I was dead broke. And I don't mean dead broke with a savings account. I mean dead broke, losing the house, the whole thing
Mhm.
multiple times over the past 17 years. And I'm open about it, not from a victimhood standpoint. I'm going to open about it in the sense of exactly what you're talking about, but in another way too, which is you just keep going though. You don't keep doing the same thing the same way when it didn't work, but you tweak it just a little bit, but your momentum still needs to move forward. Because of that failure, you didn't run away from the industry in embarrassment because you were wrong. You figured out what you did wrong and you dug in and you learned from that mistake. That's what I want everybody to take from every episode of this. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. I mean, it's important. It's important to
Mhm.
hear. I mean, you've got to know everyone. I mean, you can't. I know we live in a time where shame has left the conversation, but it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something that, like, look, I've probably tried things that other people wouldn't have, and that's good. I think that's
Yep.
take. Let me ask you though, if you don't mind, because I'm originally from Philadelphia
Oh,
area.
nice. I am as well. I was born in
Yeah.
Bucks County, went to Drexel.
Yeah, no, I want to. So did my wife. I wanted to ask you what were you doing in the Pennsylvania area? What businesses? What I recognize?
Yeah, so in Pennsylvania, I started out with a Riglio beverage, which is one of the
Oh yeah, of
larger Miller Coors wholesalers there. That's how I
course.
started there right out of high school. I started in breakage. I was in the room in the back, and when the trucks would come back with the broken cases, I would clean them, fix them, send them out. That way, everybody in the audience understands what that is. So literally, it's the next step to the janitor and the maintenance man, and that's how I started in the industry. And then all of a sudden, just started moving my way through and worked my way up through there, and then within a couple of years was the vice president of Ace Distributing in York, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
when I was the vice president there, I ran their craft beer division. Through this business, it was an exclusive contract where they brought me in as a contractor to open the new division and expand their territory. So I managed mergers and acquisitions of different brands as well as a couple different businesses over the course of my time there.
Well, these are great. These are great names. I mean, I haven't heard them in a long time. I haven't been back in Philadelphia in many years, many years.
Yeah,
But
some of the brand stuff we did was bringing Deschutes into
oh
Pennsylvania
yeah,
and
sure.
New Belgium Brewing Company out of Fort Collins, Colorado, and
Mhm.
about 30. In the course of the time, there was about 36 different brands we brought into Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I remember. This is a funny story. Not funny, but it's mercifully brief. I remember I was the sommelier at the Philadelphia Four Seasons Hotel.
That was one of
Um,
my accounts when
of
I
course,
worked for Riglio.
I think that was everybody's account. We were the Four Seasons at the time. This is in the '90s, early '90s, but mid '90s, uh, was the biggest account for wine anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We bought millions of dollars, beer too. And I was approached by, and I'm in my 20s or something, and I was approached by a guy that said, "Hey, do you want to go into the beer business instead of wine? It's really happening right now." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "It's a little bit of a startup right now, but I think you'll really rise quick. It's called Sam Adams." I'm like, and I'm like, "Get out!" I'm like, I thought about it at the time. I was like, "Get out of town!" Like that's a first of all, Boston, you're in Philadelphia, make no sense to me. So I didn't do it, but I'd probably be a very different person right now had I taken the opportunity.
It would be, it would be a universal trait that would have accelerated you doing a brand like that because you understood all the stuff in the wine world. So that's what they want. They wanted in the very beginning. It very much was a they were searching for sommeliers and stuff like that because they knew where
Yeah.
craft beer was going and they needed to accelerate.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. I don't think
It's
I've
funny
ever
that
thought of that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The Four Seasons, I'll make you laugh at this. It wasn't to go in to sell beer. It was that we carried Voss water.
Oh yeah, sure.
And so that was I was the one that went around the white tablecloth accounts in Philadelphia selling the Voss water while. So let's move over to your consulting business currently. So we have the book has been established, the book is out there. I want two pieces actually before we go into consulting. I just realized. For anybody else out there, we have about 50% of our followers are all founders, owners, and senior
Yeah,
leaders. Talk a little bit about like the book was for you, but have you
yeah.
seen any indirect like lead generations or engaging conversations with industry people so far, or any way that it's kind of opened some doors for you outside of just the reading and selling the book?
Oh my goodness, I did not realize what was going to happen. You know, a lot of people who they leave their position for one reason or another, and they say, "Well, now I'm going to be a consultant." You know, and I felt that was a little strange. I honestly set up a consulting a shingle or hung my shingle up because taxes. You know, but after the book came out, I've been approached a lot, and not by like, oh, this winery really needs help, although that's happened too, but by companies that are tangential or ancillary to the wine business. Second, for example. Tourism companies. I was asked to join the board of advisors on a tourism company, but also fulfillment companies because of my recent position with Wine Direct, which is a shipping and fulfillment company, and even a tech company uh, who dabbles in this realm and just wants information. So that kind of attention that comes from publishing a book and getting out there. And to be quite honest, even though this is only my second podcast that I've ever been on. The first podcast had my phone, not my phone, but my email ringing off the hook, and that was great. I mean, that is great, and I'm wondering what my uh, next 10 years is going to look like, and it's going to be awfully different than my last 10 years. And if I actually wrote well, I should say, if I actually finished my second book, that would be a huge big deal. So I think because I think I can carve out a place in that. I don't know what if you call it influencers. It's not. I'm not an influencer, but like thinkers.
Mhm.
You know, thinkers, and I'd like that. I would like that. I have been in deep thought about our business for 3 decades, and that really, honestly, that's what the book is about. Like, let's think about our business. That's what my Substack is about. Let's think about our business.
Love that, and I'm excited. I'm excited to buy your book after this episode because I always say that there's not enough good books for specifically this industry, and I mean alcohol in general.
It looks like this, if you're wondering.
Excellent. Excellent. I'll be ordering that this week for sure.
That's kind
What
of
I
the thing.
want is I want people to understand that, for me personally, when I was working in the wholesale side of things as well as managing sales teams, there was for the longest time, new salespeople would graduate college and want to work in the alcohol industry, and they would want to do this, but we would literally be like, "There's not a book for this."
Hmm.
Like, and that's true, and it was true in that time, and there's a couple books now, you know what I mean, but really cohesive, comprehensive, industry forward books that can help people through, because there's a lot of sales books out there, there's a lot of marketing books, but we all know that the beverage industry is a subset of marketing, and then within a subset of that you have alcohol, and then with the subset of that you have wine and alcohol, and then from there we separate the different kinds of alcohol. So it's important to have books like this out on the shelf and online for people to access, not just to reflect, but also to educate a next generation.
Nate, you're exactly right. You've touched on it exactly, and really, really important. And I'm so happy that you brought that up because that's exactly right. There never has been a book. There aren't courses for this necessarily. I mean, maybe Sonoma State does that, but no one no one wrote a book on how to sell wine into the marketplace. That's actually what this book does. So this book has two audiences. Um, Really, it's the middle managers, sales and marketing middle level managers who would find the book terribly interesting. and that means wholesale, that means DTC, all that stuff. The other audience is the owner of the winery or the president of the winery who answers most questions with, I have people for that. So they don't know how DTC really works. They don't know how why their e-commerce platform decision is really important, why Shopify is important, why fulfillment is important, why anything is important. They're of a CEO mindset or an ownership mindset, and they control things from 36,000 feet in the sky, and that's great. So if they want to know how this all works, that book is for them too. Who the book is not for is for people who already know everything. Honestly, and there are people like that. They'll read the book and they'll say, well, I don't think I would do it that way. Well, I'm not so sure I agree with that. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I'm just one guy, and these are just what happened to me over 30 years and how I think you should be doing it now. And I honestly, I think there's something useful in it for anyone, honestly, anyone.
Yeah, I was just just looking at everything you've covered in there, and it definitely makes sense. Now with Wine Direct and Wine Direct and everything like that, let's talk a little bit about that. So DTC space for wine, and what do you guys do there, and kind of how do you guys approach the markets?
Well, my time with Wine Direct ended at the end of the year, and which
I'm
is
sorry.
fine. No, that's fine. They're. I mean, talk about a great company with great leadership. They're really, really smart people, and they do a necessary function in this industry. The CEO of that company almost essentially invented the modern fulfillment of wine shipping, and that's the way that when I say necessary, I mean the experience of the customer has of purchasing the wine is one thing, but receiving the wine at their house is another thing, and that's really what fulfillment does. It's an extension of the DTC tasting room. It's an extension of the winery's brand. It's an extension of all those things, because if the wine arrives in one piece in the proper box with the proper packaging and the proper branding, and it's not beat up and it doesn't look like garbage when it gets there, and it's not wet or it's not covered in soot, that's important, and that's what fulfillment houses do. Of course, once it gets into the hands of FedEx or UPS, you don't really know what's going to happen, but you can try and you can track. And there's a lot of technology these days that really wasn't there just a few years ago, especially for tracking and getting a text message where is my package, that sort of thing. So it's not just shipping; it's part of the whole experience for the consumer, and this is great. I mean, that's a really important part of the business. In addition to that, you've got the e-commerce platforms like Orderport and WineHub and Commerce7, who are making it easier for the consumer to purchase wine and enjoy and receive the experience the winery is hoping to get to the customer as well. And so a lot of these things seem very, very technical. They are very technical, but they are part and parcel to the overall consumer experience. Yeah.
What so with that closing out the other week there, what are the next steps and some of the strategy ideas, if you can give us a peek under the curtain for the future agenda for 2026? Sounds exciting with the book and everything like that going forward.
Well, honestly, yeah, no, writing book number 2 and 3 are both on somewhere on the screen here, and I'm working with the publisher on what they should look like. I'm also trying to assess, things are changing very rapidly. 2025 was a really interesting year. 2026 is going to be a really interesting year. And I'm trying to assess what's important to write about. I just, I can't sit back and just write a dry academic treatise on, DTC marketing techniques. It's just nobody cares. It has to be something really, to me, it has to be meaningful. It has to actually address issues that are important to the wine business today. So I'm working on those kinds of things. I also joined the board, and I'm keeping myself, busy that way. And
Nice.
certainly, I'll end up in another situation soon, I'm sure. Although, anyone who has that little green box around their face or little green circle around their face on LinkedIn, you got to feel bad for right now, because the market is convulsing. I mean, it's the whole alcohol industry is in a convulsion, and it's not their fault. It's at all. I mean, this is really. I think the expectation. Sorry, I'm riffing a little bit here, but
No, keep going, keep going.
yeah, the expectations that the business has on consumers is just unreasonable. That we're just going to keep drinking and drinking and drinking our faces off, like, oh, the worse the news gets, the more we're going to keep drinking. That's not what's happening. People's reaction to bad news on the screen every day has been to get healthier. Good, fine. What's wrong with that? But if we can right size, to use good technology tech term, if we can right size our business to meet the consumers where they are, and not be unreasonably wishing for 22-year-olds to pick up a wine glass. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Um, if we can right size our business expectations, we're going to be better off. And really, we're not talking about right sizing as much as we're talking about right sizing the business, the production, the vineyards, all these things. Really getting our expectations in line is just as important. And the I wrote an article about this. Our expectation of growth and growth and growth and more growth for these companies, and then if you don't grow, you're a failure. Just doesn't. I mean, look out the window. Look out the window.
Yeah.
That's not normal right now. So we have to right size our expectations. There are companies that are growing, just as there would be companies growing at any given time. There are companies losing, just like there would be companies losing at any given time. So I bristle when somebody says, "Yeah, but that company's growing 18%." Okay, I've had a very interesting view on our wine business, Napa and Sonoma in particular, Paso Robles, when I was at my previous position, and I could see where people's business was. And I would never say anything, but I can tell you that there was a lot of red. There was some green, but there was more red than green. There just is. And so I think we'll get it straightened out. And I think AI is going to play an important part in how we communicate and what we do. And I think I think so long as we don't lose the spirit of it, as long as we don't lose the convivial nature of alcohol, beverage enjoyment, and the spirit of it, then we should be okay. It's going to take a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. It's 27 when the Farm Bill passed in 2018 for the hemp beverage area and stuff like that, for hemp and marijuana. I saw the writing on the wall at that point that the consumer was going to be distracted off alcohol, and where you could see a comparable type of product. So we started adding those into. I went and got certified in the marijuana industry and all kinds of stuff, and I started adding that in the portfolio. So I have alcohol in the portfolio at various points. I've had wine, beer, RTD, spirits, non-alcoholic beers and cocktails, all the way through to botanical teas, functional mushroom beverages, and now hemp beverages. I bring that up because I'm going to say this, and it probably is going to upset a lot of people in the alcohol industry with their druthers of what's going on right now. But I feel like a lot of people haven't been in business without growth in a while, so they forget that they actually realizing that they don't like business, because this is business. Like, I've been in business by myself for 17 years. It's peaks and valleys. And sitting and complaining and yelling to the rooftop doesn't mean anything. Adaptability and authenticity and transparency is what happens. And here's the problem with that, the alcohol industry, I'm going to call it right now, is transparency on labeling. And one thing the hemp beverage industry is doing right now that's going to start converting consumers for expectations to the other industries is the hemp beverages have nutrition facts as if it's an FDA canned soda. They have all the ingredients. They have a QR code that you scan and shows you all the lab tested bacteria to make sure there's nothing inside, literally to the metallic infusions that could occur inside the liquid. And where I see that growth of that industry and the transparency of that packaging is going to filter across to all beverages, because the consumer, it's not that the consumer's leaning towards hemp sometimes. Sometimes they're just leaning towards cleaner products. And it's not overall. It's not an overall thing. They're not leaving forever from alcohol. But we have to understand that they're including a bolt-on now to their lives. And that bolt-on is exactly what you just said. We're not going to continue to grow the volume of fluids that we consume every day and every month. So if we're going to bring in a new category into our lives, it's going to replace something else in some capacity or proportion.
Yeah, wine clubs, for example, have always been zero sum. The the you go back to right around what the time you're talking about, around 2018, when the growth stopped,
Mm-hmm.
and the only Silicon Valley Bank raised an alarm at that point, at least as far as I know. Even then, back then, I was saying, look, if someone joins your wine club, it's because they left two others. You know, that's how it was.
It's so true though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it was contracting. Like, oh, did you added 5 new club members? Well, somebody lost 10. That's the way that is, and it's been playing out. I think the whole market right now is almost zero sum for wine. That is for that the that we are fighting each other, jockeying for position, and there's not much else we can do. We're not a unified industry per se. We don't, even though we have the same sort of behavior, which is why they call us an industry. We behave similarly. We're not really unified, and we don't move together. So yeah, for now, it's just going to be taking business from each other. And so how's that going to look when it's done? It's To me, we're talking about a major bifurcation of the wine business. So you've got massive scale on one end and tiny scale on the other. And that's the middle is where is going to be oppressed. Like any economic situation, the middle gets pressed a lot, and so scale is going to win on one side. So I mean, you can see how people are hedging their bets. Look at Gallo. Gallo's taken the bottom shelf. Now they've taken the bottom 2 shelves. The small producer who is 5,000 cases or 6,000 cases and manages to be profitable somehow, needs to just hold the line and keep doing that. Be efficient, be smart, and just hold the line until things normalize. What's that look like? I can't say. How long is that going to take? Who knows? Who knows? A couple of years.
When you what year? How old were you when you started in the wine industry?
20.
You were 20. Okay, so we were I was 19, so we're the same age. Cool. When you were in the 20s, it was the coolest job in the world and all this, all this stuff. But did you envision the level in which you are now? And I don't mean this egotistically. I mean the knowledge level and the framework understanding of the system of what is the wine industry.
That's a great question, because I used to think that having more and more wine knowledge, like being able to, walk blindfolded from Merceau to Volnay, and that would be important. Like knowing every grape variety on earth, like that was important. Boy, that was
did
wrong.
The same thing.
that was wrong. If I had it to do over again, I think I would have taken some more business classes, because that's sometime around, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s. I realized that I better know the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet. And at that point, I said, well, I had to divorce myself from the romantic side of the wine business. It never left me, but I can't mess around with that, and I have to study business. And so I took over wineries beginning around 2002, and so that's like, well, I don't know, 20 some years ago, and that's when this started to form in my head, like how wine matters in a business sense. And I wrote an article not too long ago that I said it was titled "The Problem with the Wine Business is Business." And it has to do with managing the expectations of business. Business expects growth, among other things. And there's a reason why there's no accounting software written for the wine business. It's too small. And it wasn't until recently that QuickBooks didn't even understand multiple warehouses until not too long ago. And manage a small winery with NetSuite, for example. I mean, NetSuite costs $100,000 a year to run. There's no business isn't made for the wine business. And what business on earth takes a product from an agricultural product, a bud, to grapes, to crush, to the barrel, to the élevage, to this and that, and all the inputs that go into a bottle, then to the consumer, into the regulation pool, and it comes out the other side 3.5 years later. What kind of business? That's the dumbest business I've ever heard. and it's remarkable. I mean, there's no business like that. It takes it takes 3.5 years to make a bottle of Cabernet, proper bottle of Cabernet, and sell it is outrageous. But there's no business. So why would we expect the wine business to conform with our modern idea of business? And the only place that really truly works is when you have a massive scale. When you have a really big scale, then market forces take over. They really do.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing to describe to people sometimes when, I work with startups almost exclusively. And just because it's a place that I found is a place of comfort. I enjoy the chaos. I enjoy the pressure.
Yeah.
I enjoy tight budgets and being resourceful. It's a fun creative outlet for me. While also it's serious in the sense that I understand it. And I understand the seriousness of every dollar needing to have as fast as possible because there's not major investors in, especially in the hemp beverage space. I work with those clients because there are not financial institutions or investors that are running to it because of all the gray regulatory stuff. So what I'm saying to that is it is the biggest challenge to run a business properly, to have the proper data, to have the proper CRMs, to have the proper reporting systems that cost most times minimum like you said, $100,000, while also not having the cash flow to do that. So it's that cart before the horse of scale, that most uncomfortable place of how do we get to there without the tools and resources of getting there. And I think that's where a lot of people give up. And I say that because I've read their call notes, I've read their strategy, and it's an attempt, but it's a disjointed attempt and it's not cohesive. And that's the problem, is the technology makes the cohesiveness, but the technology sometimes is unattainable.
Yeah, no, I think the wine business needs to be grateful for all the millionaires and billionaires who have put money into it, seeking a different kind of lifestyle or a diversification of their footprint, right? And we need to be grateful for that, because otherwise, if that hadn't happened, the American wine business would look like Portugal's wine business. It would be much less important. But because we've managed to build a lifestyle around it, and because people are willing to lose money, lots of money, on the wine business, we can enjoy wine the way it is right now, which is a remarkably clean, brilliant product, packaged like jewelry and shipped all over the country, made available anywhere you want it. It's a stunning thing that we've done. We don't give ourselves enough credit for actually creating such a beautiful business, but really the credit belongs to all those people who lost money along the way, which is a lot. And even people who really pioneered the business have taken it on the chin. Look at Robert Mondavi. I mean, we all know Robert Mondavi's whole story, and the story is phenomenal, especially beginning in 1966, which is for him in the middle of his story. And the fact that he could start a winery when he's 52 years old and make it the most famous wine name on earth is an extraordinary achievement. But then, where is it today? And it's really, really hard to put your finger on where's the Mondavi name today. Even though the sons are geniuses and doing extremely well. It's a shame where this whole thing has gone.
It's also in all industries we're seeing that is that evolution, and whether it's a brand that sells and then the culture changes and the brand actually changes, or the kids either want to take it over and do a good job, they don't want anything to do with it, or they drive it into the ground because of their egos. And it's one of those, there's like three paths on that one. And it scares me in some ways, because some of these great, and this is actually part of it, Main Street America too, some of these great brands and great businesses that exist that don't have the succession planning in place, really, it puts industries at jeopardy. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault that the kids don't want to take it over, or the finances aren't there to make it a valuable asset to sell. But at the same time, it's concerning because of the volume in which it's about to be a wave that in the next 5 to 10 years that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, is people retiring, burnout, et cetera, et cetera.
This comes back to my point about business in general. Yeah. I mean, the expectations that a young person, and by young I mean like in their 30s or 40s today, whose parents started a winery because they bought the land in 1968 or they bought the land in 1972, in Napa, and now they're not quite liquid, but they've got that land wealth, which is extraordinary. But we should have seen this coming because this played out in Europe over the centuries. When you look, even, and I've been around long enough to remember that when you meet a chateau owner from Bordeaux or from Loire, wherever they're from, and he laments to you that his kids are not interested in the business. Well, I'll tell you why: because they're lawyers in Paris, and because they're doctors, and because they don't want to spend their time in this rundown farm making no money. For what? For wine? I can buy wine. I don't need to make wine. So we should have seen that coming a long time ago, that the succession was going to be fractured by people's expectations of what that is. Even when it's easy, even when the winery is hyper successful and the kids are really into it and all that, it's still a difficult succession because the kids have different ideas, modern ideas, from mom and dad, and that creates an issue too sometimes, not every time.
Yeah, a lot of time, and yeah, sometimes it does, and I've experienced that with a couple different ways of transfers of ownership and things like that over the years. Sometimes it becomes an amazing thing, and sometimes it becomes the detriment and demise of the business.
Right.
Yeah, it's a fascinating place to be, and I think that I want to know a little bit too before we close out. When you were 20 years old, what was the moment or the person, or just like give me the whole environment and experience of when you decided to get into the alcohol industry?
Oh, well, yeah, I think it's I think I've told the story a number of times. Um, my mother was is a very good cook. And we used to watch Julia Child when I was a kid, and got an appreciation for those finer things. And so, being unsuccessful in my accounting career or my stockbrokering career in college, I made a turn towards culinary, and I went to culinary school and studied in France. Part of the field trip we took in France, I was at La Varenne in Dijon. We drove up to the Clos Vougeot in Burgundy, and I think I was 19 years old or so. And we had been out drinking at a bar the night before, and kind of hungover, but class started at 5:45 a.m. And there I was, looking pretty peaked, I guess. And somebody at the Clos Vougeot took pity on me and gave me a watered down glass of wine and 2 aspirins and a piece of cheese, and said, "Here, take these, eat this, drink this, and you'll be fine." They were right. I was fine. But honestly, being in that place, with the stained glass and the remarkable vineyards all around, and the history, 1,000 years of history, the wine was so good that it just became a part of me, and it never left me. Never left me. Even when I got back to Philly and started cooking in kitchens, that only lasted a few months. I went straight to the front of the house to figure out what to do in the wine business. And it's been, I don't know, that was 38 years ago.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is, I love when something like that happens to somebody. Like in that experience, it wasn't, oh, my dad told me to do it and it worked out and I liked it. Like it was the universe was putting you there. The universe gave you that experience. Yeah.
No, our family, we didn't even drink.
Oh, even better,
Yeah.
even better. Well, hey, Jim, I really thank you for taking the time, and most importantly, I thank you for taking the courage of hopping on a podcast without any questions, without any script or anything like that, and no prep. I try to tell people we didn't go out to dinner earlier, we didn't have breakfast today, we've never met, we've never shaken hands, never looked each other in the eye, and other than through a screen. And I want to tell you that means a lot to me, and it means not only for the format of the show, but also for hope that of the types of people that are out there in this world. And I know we get overwhelmed with a lot of the negativity in this world, but I hope that people's key takeaway is that there are good people out here, and there's great people that want to connect and want to do good in this world. So I really appreciate it, Jim. Is there anything you want to, as we're closing out, if you want to plug or send anybody, if you want to maybe one more plug on the book and where to find it and everything?
Yeah, no, if you don't mind, the post-pandemic wine market, you got to go to the book section of Amazon in order to find it. But if you live here in Napa, where I am, you can buy it at a local bookstore, and that's even better. It's It was fun to write. I hope you enjoy it. It really is for people who want to apply this trade and maybe are a little confused about what the future brings. It's not I kind of age-proofed the book a little bit, so that it would last and be useful for a long period of time. And I think it will be. And maybe the second edition will come out in a couple of years and update it a bit. But no, thank you for the opportunity to plug that again. This has been a lot of fun. It's funny. I said this is the second podcast I've ever been on. The first podcast, I was sent the questions in advance, just as notes. They weren't trying to script anything, and but I forgot to read them. So I did the same exact thing. I just got on and I started talking. I think when you love something, and I love wine, and I love the wine business, and I love talking about this, it's not hard to talk about. It just isn't. And when you have a cool host like yourself who actually understands what they're hearing, that makes it easier. So I appreciate this a lot.
No, I thank you, Jim. I've interviewed about 280 founders and CEOs and things like that so far. And I've had a lot of people that got upset because there was no questions in advance. And I'm always very blunt to people. And I tell people exactly what you just said. If you're passionate about what you do and you know your shit, you can hop on.
Yep. Glad to do it. Well, I hope you'll have me back again sometime.
Oh, I absolutely will. We're going to start doing some roundtable stuff where we're going to bring two different guests in and do some roundtable topics type stuff. So I'm definitely going to bring you in for that. And I wanted to, even though it's only your second podcast, Jim, you talk to me like you've done a couple hundred as well. So full confidence going forward with any other podcast you're going on. And two things I want to tell everybody. I'm definitely buying Post-Pandemic Wine Market later this week. So I hope you guys do as well, especially if you're in the industry. There are not enough books like this. So this is a treasure gem that everybody should definitely have. I'm looking forward to checking that out. And then secondly, I'll talk to you off camera and maybe we can help you get some book distribution on the East Coast to some of these wineries and gift shops and stuff like that out here.
That'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Excellent, Jim. Well, hey, you have a good rest of your day. And thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
You too.
All right, take care.